Hi, I'm H.E. Wallace. I'm one half of our writing partnership, Noetics, and the co-author of our debut novel, Points of Failure, Volume 1, Interwoven. Please ignore all my post-its. I've been working. So this is our second video in our Developing Characters series. If you watched our last one, it was about our protagonist, Tom Morant. But today we're going to go into his best friend, Aristide Beau Soncal. He goes by Beau, so that's what we're going to call him for the rest of this video. Okay, so I am working off of a script so that I cover all the points that Roy and I discussed. So it might be a little bit longer. Stick around and hope you enjoy. So this month, the month of February, we have been focusing on Aristide Beau Soncal. If you haven't read the book, that's okay. None of these videos are going to be spoilers. But as you do know, if you have read our book, Beau is Ta's best friend. They've known each other since secondary school when Ta was 11 years old and Beau was 13, and they were roommates. There's this established appreciation for each other, and their history is already set up in the first chapter. They've known each other for a very long time and were reunited at GEM. And again, if you haven't read our book, you're more than invited to do so. But GEM is the Galaxy Exploration Mission. Is more or less what we project NASA to be. So a space program. But specifically, the Emoja program is to seek out a new Earth for humanity to survive. Beau is the program director of the Emoja program, and he assists Ta in becoming a member of GEM, as well as getting him into the position of chief scientist. So they are locked in together. Focusing back on Beau. Beau's character has always been based on this corporate-minded individual. He's what I think the kids are calling a finance bro, but he's aged out of finance bro. Maybe in his prime, he was very finance bro, but put him at a space program. He's that mentality. He's very driven towards climbing up the ladder. He's very focused on the money, the bottom line, the notoriety. He really appreciates praise. He wants everyone to respect him. If you read our character sketch of him, that's a part of that as well. So he's very much into the more expensive side of life, but in doing so, he kind of loses focus on the soulful side of life. In previous drafts, when Beau was still called Vash, the book was written from various characters' perspectives, which helped us establish the background plot of the story, but it also provides an answer to a question that we get repeatedly. Why would Beau do that? What is wrong with Beau? So the lost chapters, those are available to our paid members of Patreon. They can answer a lot of those questions. Highly recommend. It's very embarrassing because these are poorly edited. Fourth draft. We published the 8th or 10th draft, so you can check out where the story evolved from. Growth occurred. Beau's lost chapters are closer to the timeline that the story opens with, closer to the time frame of the initial launch. There's a little bit of a flashback, but the majority of it is closer to launch day. However, in the published version of Interwoven, we provide a look into Beau's childhood. This is in chapter 5, very briefly, but this is just Ta realizing that there's more to his roommate, Beau, than just being a jerk. I didn't understand it at the time, but I'd eventually learn. Aristide meant the best where he was from. His father didn't take anything less than that in any part of Beau's life. Beau was what his mother called him, meant beautiful or handsome. He told me to call him Beau a few days later. ARISTIDE didn't seem to mean much after that. As many of us know, our childhoods play a huge part in who we become as adults. And at the very heart of Beau is a child who desperately needs love and craves approval. Beau grew up in a home that gave high praise for not the most virtuous behaviors and violent discipline when the Soncal name was at stake. He was always expected to be the best, as the definition of his name, ARISTIDE, is. And if he didn't live up to that, he received violent punishment from his father. He seldom learned the lessons that would have made him a more generous and self-disciplined individual. Instead, his parents bent the lines and warped boundaries in Beau's favor. Consequently, his aberrant social behavior is the result of this unstable, inconsistent mix of guidance from his parents. This is from chapter 39, later in the book, as Ta is examining who Beau has always been to him, but he never took the time to really assess. I've known Beau longer than anyone else. I knew him before he grew facial hair, before he hit his second and third growth spurt. I knew the glinting eye and smirk that lit up his face when he snagged a girl's attention. She, one of however many, never knew that there were many. He had a way of making a girl feel like that first star in the night sky, shiny, sparkly, and brand new. He'd spread them out so they all thought they were the first and only light in his dark sky. I'd recognize that hungry stare and almost smile he'd toss my way during a party or hangout when the boy-to-girl ratio almost matched. He'd throw that look at me before he'd disappear into another room like it was a set of keys and I was his chauffeur. He'd need about an hour and I better be ready to go when he was. "My little heartbreaker," his mother would say, sweeping back his hair with a saccharine sense of pride. "Just a handsome little devil." I liked having a brother in Beau. I liked not being alone. I liked it so much I ignored the smirks and dead chimera and forgot all about devotions and courtyards. I ignored a lot of Beau's manners. When he invited me to meet some of his college buddies he brought back to the lodge one winter break, I ignored his retelling of his most recent heartbreaking tendencies. I tried to ignore how all his buddies had their own breaking tendencies. I hoped they'd ignore my lack of them. This unstable, indulgent, and inconsistent childhood contributes to a sense that Beau doesn't know who he is or how he's supposed to move through the world. Without the job title, the potential for notoriety, without the modifications, for him, the euthanizing procedures, as Ta called them, the beautiful wife, the big house, the access to power and money, who is Beau? Who is Beau? Honestly, if I sat across from him, I don't think he'd be able to answer that. So, as Ta realizes outside of the hearing, Beau is still a scared little boy. In Beau's lost chapters, there is a scene that demonstrates how undone he becomes due to the choices he makes that conflict with a deep ingrained human sense of values, ones that were not tended to by his parents, but possibly nurtured by his friendship with Ta and the love he receives from his wife and the love that he has for his wife and children. As described in our book, Beau and his wife, Sarathi, are a beautiful couple that seem very well matched. They have two healthy and happy children, Abby being Mai's friend. But in Beau's lost chapters, cracks are revealed. Beau's insecurities are further explored in these lost chapters, and those insecurities are the ones that open him up to corruption. Enter Felix Santiago. The more entwined Beau becomes with Felix, the more Sorati, his picture-perfect wife, pulls away from him. His aspirations are being weighed against the love of his life and the family that they created. This is a difficult and honestly an impossible balance that Beau tries to achieve. He enjoys giving Sorati and his children everything they want and frames his misguided ambitions as a means to provide any and everything that they want, and to do it better than his father, bigger and better than his father. But at what cost? Metaphorically speaking, Beau represents an old way of thinking, old in the context of our storyline. It's way more relatable in our current times. He represents the materialistic drive that is devouring our planet in recent decades, centuries. Although this ravenous behavior did start centuries ago, we are far more cognizant of its detrimental impact. When our pursuits in life are primarily based on our material gains and dominating our environment and dominating others and their environments, we disrupt our connection with the world around us. So, writing a character like Beau required Roy and I to acknowledge our misguided sides, our greedy, selfish, play along to get along sides. And we all have them. And in fact, I would argue that that side of us is the side that is most praised in corporate America. Hustle culture mandates that we climb the ladder without rest and without regard for what parts of ourselves we compromise, as long as we get the bag. Having money is not a bad thing. Money is just a tool. But how we go about acquiring that money, how we utilize that money, and what parts of ourselves are we willing to compromise to get that money, those are all things that we should question. Looking at a character like Beau is way more complex than just a self-centered man. He has his family that he loves and he works very hard to support. He has many insecurities that stem from this wild upbringing. He, like many of us, believes that the more he acquires, the more wealth and status he can gain, the better his life will be, and the better he will seem to others. That's a major sticking point. If you made it this far in the video, thank you. And go ahead and put a mirror maybe in the comments to show that we could all use a little reflection, because Beau definitely can. And we hope that these deep dives into our characters help with imagining other characters in your work. We hope that you do something creative today. All right. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Take care.